Hey fam, welcome to Punks for Progress. I'm Reverend Aaron. This is a What the Fuck report. We are listening to a 45 Grave, a time of strange phenomena. This song is called Insurance from God. This is actually from the album version, from the album Sleep and Safety. The next song is called, which we will allow to play before we get into shit, but the next song to play was called Riboflavin Flavored Non-Carbonated Polyunsaturated Blood, and it's the cassette, Sleep and Safety cassette version. But anyway, 45 Grave. Welcome, fam. I've got a full show lined up for y'all today. We're going to be looking at, let's see, over here. What do I got queued up for y'all? We're going to be taking a look at the Garifuna resistance in Honduras via Anti-Conquista. Much thanks and appreciation to Anti-Conquista. We're going to be taking a look at some pipeline resistance actions via a couple videos from Unicorn Riot. Much thanks and appreciation to Unicorn Riot. We're going to be looking at some socialist history. We're going to look at the women of the Red Army via the World War II channel, Indy Nidell Does Time Goes History. And I'm going to try something new, sort of. I like, you know, looking at like Newsmax and other far-right, you know, outlets and kind of tearing apart their narratives. But Newsmax streams live 24/7. So I thought I would do kind of in the Sam Cedar tradition, like he used to. What's that piece of shit who just died? Rush Limbaugh. Yeah, that piece of shit. Sam Cedar used to do this like thing where he'd pop in and he'd listen to like 90 seconds of Rush and then do 3 minutes of ripping apart the 90 seconds of Rush that he listened to. So I'm not going to constrict myself to only watching that much of Newsmax and then only allowing myself so much time to retort, but we're going to just kind of drop in cold on the live Newsmax stream, see what they got going on, and point out just how seriously fucking full of shit they are and how dangerous their toxic fascist propaganda narratives really are. So that's the show, and of course, as always, I've got some really cool art lined up, some skateboarding videos, got a bunch of vinyl picked out for us to check out, and like I said, I'm gonna come over here where I've got some shit queued up to get the show started off right, but I want you to be able to listen to a little more of this 45 Grave first.
Non-carbonated, polyunsaturated blood.
Welcome, fam, to What the Fuck report.
Track came to me one night at 12 and said the blood bank had no blood on the shelf. I exclaimed,
Check this out.
I'll give you a fix of my newly regenerated mix. I gave him right.
This is Meth Leopard. This is Meth Leopard. The song's called Dead Kardashians, and it comes to us via way of the YouTube channel Dead by Digital. You should definitely give a sub to if you like. I'm going to play 3 videos actually recently published by Death by Digital. This one is Meth Leopard. This track is called Dead Kardashians. That's right. Check out that channel. So What the Fuck report, fam. Welcome.
What the fuck? What the like to dedicate this one to Punks for Progress. Punks for Progress. This is for our comrades of Punks for Progress.
Punks never anarchy. Fight for your liberty. We don't want your government. We don't need your services. I'm an anarchist. I'm an anarchist.
Punks for Progress on YouTube and Facebook. Thanks, brother.
That sounds right up my alley.
That was a good day when you hear a punk say the word righteous.
Okay, fam, what we got queuing up here now is, as I promised, a video from Anti-Conquista. The video, actually, no, we don't. I got something else queued up. Sorry, fam. Short little Moscow Death Brigade.
Beat us, the real trend hit us. Back on the streets, so show them all what real hit us. Defy them, lead us. We stay united, they can't defeat us. Get up, blasting, we stay nasty. Rip them, stay tanks out, outlast them. I say the government like anti-passive. We bind down hooligans, punks and crosses. Disgusting, that's how they call us. Now they by the start, cause they got no crosses. Pass, we face the falls. Fangs and clothes, yeah, I've got some of those. That's how it goes, we take a stand. More than a band, you can trust the brand. I got a bad accent, you can't understand. But this beat to the floor, make a brand new head. Ski mask and tracksuit. You know we're angry you. We're back on the track to attack me, brother, and say the hood. Ski mask and tracksuit. You know we're angry you. We're back on the track to attack me, brother, and say the hood. 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 Speak in the walls, give me gaps, back it. I got the same calls with the same North Face. Check it, still making a record. Unity, bullet right, but who can't break it now? We gotta one stop, bring in the noise, make it so.
There we go. Big thanks to Moscow Death Brigade. And like I said, as promised, this is from Anti-Conquista. The video is called Anti-Conquista Supports Garifuna Resistance in Honduras. Let's read the description really quick. Nahun Lalin, a spokesperson for the Black Fraternal Organization of Honduras, OFRENE, shares a message of solidarity with Anti-Conquista. OFRENE is the oldest and largest organization representing the Afro-Indigenous Garifuna people in Honduras. Today, the Garifuna people are resisting imposed poverty, state violence, climate change, and forced displacement. In November of 2020, Anti-Conquista raised and sent $1,500 to OFRENE in solidarity with the Garifuna resistance movement in Honduras. This is part of our ongoing Fund the Resistance program, in which we raise and send funds to our people on the front lines of struggle against capitalism and imperialism. All of this has been possible because of your tangible economic support for Anti-Conquista. We don't keep a single penny. Almost all of the money we raise goes directly to our sisters and brothers in our motherland fighting imperialism. The 5 co-editors and 7 social media contributors who run Anti-Conquista volunteer their time to produce content free of charge. Unsure about what your role as a communist is in the belly of the beast? Put your money where your mouth is and fund the resistance in Latin America and the Caribbean. Okay, so I'm going to turn these subtitles on. I can't remember if there was there was subtitles already in it, but I'm going to read along with them for you, fam. And here we go. My name is Nahun Lalin. I'm from Honduras. From the community of Sambo Creek, I sit on the executive board of the Black Fraternal Organization of Honduras, OFRENE. We send a warm hello to everyone who follows Anti-Conquista. In any part of the world, our organization surges from the need to defend human rights in 1968 in the state of Puerto Cortes. We are human rights defenders. In Honduras, there are 18 states. In 5 of these departments, Garifuna communities exist. There are 46 Garifuna communities nationally, every single one of which we have a presence in. As an organization, aside from our work in the Garifuna community, we work with the 9 indigenous groups. We assist and stand in solidarity with their struggles. We address a myriad of issues and topics. We don't work in on a single issue. We address climate change, coastal erosion, food security, territorial demarcations, women's rights and women's empowerment, and the defense of natural resources. We also work with community radio stations because we know our voices are not heard in mainstream corporate media. It is because of that we have a strong focus on media and communication. We empower young people in each of these areas, primarily in the defense of collective rights, natural resources, and territorial demarcations. Unfortunately, as Garifunas and as Hondurans as well, we are living through a difficult period. Every day, criminalization, persecution, and violence rises. In Honduras, the simple act of expressing your dislike, of defending defending your rights, places you at risk before the impunity and corruption which ensues. At this moment, we are gravely concerned because the levels of criminalization, persecution, and assassinations of fellow human rights defenders have increased. Just this past year, 23 Garifuna community members were violently killed. This includes human right defenders, both men and women. We continue with these concerns because there has already been 8 assassinations of Garifuna human rights defenders. In addition, 5 of our comrades were kidnapped on July 18. In the Triunfo de la Cruz community by entities of the repressive police. Directorate of Investigations. To this day, we've yet to receive any response from the Honduran state while 5 families continue to wait for their loved ones. We continue to insist on their return with life. Our struggle, twofold, to ensure the return of our community members and so that no one else is kidnapped. We must continue fighting. We cannot be intimidated. Although we are being persecuted and criminalized, we must think in the legacy we leave future generations. What kind of planet do we want to leave behind? What system do we want to leave? Thank you. Amazing. Amazing. Please give Anticonquista a sub. Definitely worth following. They provide so much, really it's just proper leftist comment. I'm an anarchist. I'm not necessarily a communist. But rarely, if ever, do I see anything that offends my anarchist sensibilities coming out of Anticonquista. I'm always going to have disagreements with literally every individual voice on something somewhere. That's the nature of humanity. But Anticonquista is just fucking fantastic. But I have some art queued up. I featured him before. This is Greg Simpkins' art. This piece is called I Painted a Garbage Pail Kid. And what I have over here queued up, in solidarity again with Anticonquista, is, let me show you the cover here, Los Crudos. This song is called That's Right, We're That Spick Band. Grimple, Logical Nonsense split. This is the first song on the Grimple side. totally the wrong speed. Going back. I'm just playing it right. I don't fucking care, fam. I mean, that was sounding cool, and I'm just like, wait a minute, I don't remember Grimple having a female vocalist. But anyway, we should play it the right way. That fucking was still it's still a fucking, anyway. Going on the right No clue what I'm doing. But, you know, it's good art, right? My deepest apologies to Grimple. Seriously. Deepest, sincerest apologies to Grimple. But here's the thing. Put the rotations per minute on your center label. Just saying, man. This here's Lowly and the Chonies. I'm going to play 2 tracks off this. This one's called I'm a Mess, and the next one's called Gush on You. Clocked in.
I've gotta pay your time. Gotta collect my reward. I've gotta stay alive. Makes me feel so fucking bored. Fight, buzzer sounds. Gotta move. Rainbows, emeralds, rainbows. Real song. Clock, box orders I made. I can't get them back. No matter how I try, can't get that fucker off my back. No, buzzer sounds, gotta move. Rainbows, emeralds, rainbows, real slow. That child wakes me up in the morning. I don't know.
Nice work, Greg Simpkins' art, man. I'm probably going to feature him some more. I just really dig looking at his stuff. Queuing up now. A couple pieces from Unicorn Riot. Check out the description here. Like I said, I've got 2 videos picked out from them from this action. There is a full-length video that they put together. If you go check out their channel, you can watch the whole thing. But these are sort of 2 highlight videos from it, and they're both 3 to 5 minutes each. And I haven't watched them, so we're going to watch them together for the first time. But this description reads, construction for the tar sands pipeline expansion project on Line 3 continues in Anishinaabe territory in northern Minnesota in below zero temperatures. Enbridge's contracted companies like Precision Pipeline carve out the line's pathway, fell any trees in the way, and lay the pipe in the ground. However, because of the persistent resistance movement, work stoppages, or at least work interruptions, are common. On February 10, 2021, 2 people, including Dylan Bremner, locked down to a digger on a work site. Bremner told us that the digger they were on was successfully halted for 3 hours. However, after 30 minutes into the lockdown, the foreman told the other workers they could continue. In addition to Bremner and the other person who locked down, 4 others were arrested. February 10 was also the arraignment hearing for 3 other line resistors out of about 120 who were arrested during direct action since Minnesota approved the final permit, a construction stormwater permit, for the expansion project on November 30th, 2020. Cue it to the beginning, and here we go, fam.
I'm here in the very, very freezing cold of northern Minnesota from Atlanta, Georgia, talking about the action that happened on February 10th. So basically, yeah, we walked right onto the easement and slipped a lockbox onto. So the digger stopped basically as soon as we walked onto we were approaching the digger, and the digger stopped, and the arm was on the ground. And we basically just hopped onto it and padlocked our arms together inside a lockbox through the arm of the digger. So the digger obviously we're also sitting on top of the box of the arm, and so the digger couldn't function anymore. But the rest of the work just kept on happening around us. After half an hour, the foreman was just all clear, and the other machines just started up again. And this one digger was stationary because we were on top of it, but the other ones just kept running around us. So it was this kind of bizarre moment of just sort of having this great vantage point to watch this awful pipeline being created, and we did successfully stop this one section for about 3 hours, so that felt really successful. But it was also disheartening to be did they really just not give a shit about our security at all and our safety? Because we had no we had no hard hat, no goggles, none of that. We were literally on top of the digger, and maybe I don't know, 15 meters away from us, 10 meters away from us, there's another digger that was still in operation. So that was kind of bizarre. Even just at night at the campfire, you can still hear the work going on, and there's always some noise. I don't know exactly what time they stop work here, but there's always some noise going on. And so you can see the floodlights to the trees, you can see the security patrolling on the road. I mean, there's so much that makes me so angry. I mean, the fact that, like, it's been fucking hundreds of years since white settlers came and violently displaced indigenous people in this country, and we still haven't fucking learned from that. Those tragedies, we continue to break treaties, we continue to violate land which is sacred, and, you know, that is a cycle of oppression which remains unbroken and continues, that those treaties continue to be broken, and are being broken right here on this land. So that makes me fucking furious that even now, amidst climate crisis and all these converging catastrophes which began with white settler colonialism, we still haven't fucking learned our lesson, and we continue to break these treaties and dishonor indigenous livelihoods and lifeways. Just realizing that the so-called democracy of this country is a complete sham. Like, thousands and thousands of people who live in this area have said they don't want this pipeline to be laid, right? And it doesn't matter. Their voice is not relevant because Enbridge has tons and tons of money and tons of influence in the Minnesota legislature that they have the politicians in their pocket and they can do whatever they want. And so, yeah, I think participating in this, it's a different way of making your voice heard, you know? It's a different way to conceive of democracy, because hundreds or thousands of people voting with their feet, you know? Putting themselves in harm's way for something which is worth more than their own individual safety in that current moment. It's a different way of conceiving democracy, and it's one that is much more fulfilling to be part of, rather than living in sort of like this song and dance of a democracy, which is incredibly shallow and feels like a lie, to be frank. I think a lot of people my age in their early 20s are really feeling this right now, that so much of the status quo of this country just feels fake. And yeah, even though there are more dangers associated with being up at the protest camps in Line 3 and participating, it makes you feel like you're really whole and you're really alive in a way that just being home and voting for Joe Biden does not. Not to say, you know, I'm shaming people who voted for Joe Biden. I did as well. But yeah, Joe Biden hasn't stopped Line 3 yet, right? And there's a lot of evidence that Democrats are just as complacent with corporations like Enbridge as Republicans are. So there's a lot more going on deeper beneath the surface, which people who have a more cursory understanding of what's happening in this country from publications like CNN don't quite get, I think.
Fantastic. You know, the thought that I had as the next video starts to queue up, because like I said, there's a second video here from Unicorn Riot. But the thought that I had was that, and I think that this is relates to sort of across the board in relation to leftist struggles, right? And emancipation and people's struggles. Beyond the news cycle, like for instance, beyond the news cycle, the story continues, and the attacks from the capitalist imperialist status quo continue. When we have victories, or just when things maybe just move out of the foremost of the news cycle, the story continues. And what I'm getting at is, we spent a lot of time in 16, of course, looking at what happened at Standing Rock. And since then, we've heard of declarations coming out of the administration to stop certain aspects of the pipeline. But this black snake, man, it fucking slithers and has many fucking branches, and it continues. And just because you might hear about one branch of it being shut down, which is an immense fucking victory that was in every situation where you hear about that, hard fought by many indigenous people, sacrificing and really, really putting the full 24/7 effort into achieving that victory. But and it has to be recognized, and it has to be appreciated and learned from, of course. But the fucking struggle continues, fam, and that's kind of even when the cameras aren't directed, and the mainstream cameras aren't pointed directly at the story as much anymore, that doesn't mean that One, like I said, this is in relation, just because we're not seeing the George Floyd uprisings, on the news every single day doesn't mean that the struggle for Black lives isn't continuing. Okay. And that applies to just, again, across the board with all of our leftist struggles. It's important to get the message out. It's important to educate people about what's happening on the ground and whether, even our defeats, but of course our successes, we have to fucking take a moment and celebrate them, of course, but let's always do our best to keep them in context of the broader project, right? And never, ever fucking forget that until the capitalist imperialist status quo is eliminated, all efforts of the people, of the workers, of the indigenous, of the oppressed classes, of the oppressed minorities, whether it's black or brown people, indigenous people, trans people, will continue. The unrelenting and violent, brutal attack and oppression of these communities continues. The second we have a victory, they reform and they come at us again. Okay? So those were my thoughts as I was listening to that. And I just appreciate the ongoing efforts of people like Unicorn Riot, who provide the consistent coverage we need to see once the cameras that have more viewers start pointing at other things. Right? All right, here we go. This is the second video. Maybe I should read the, I should. This second video is called Water Protectors Rally on Line 3 Pipeline Work Site. And the description reads, during the nonviolent direct action on Friday, February 16, 2021, in I'm going to say this wrong, Anishinaabe territory. Maybe I said it right. Who knows? We spoke with, Zabowakwe, a Ginu collective member who gave an overview of the hashtag Line 3 tar sands pipeline being built and what the pipeline is putting at risk. She also talked about how more needs to be done. Quote, we're not going to make the change, the radical change that's needed unless we're willing to do something about it. And what we've been doing so far hasn't been enough. Incremental change, policies, and all that stuff, it's all important, but it hasn't been enough. So I hope people find their bravery. Wow. I hope people find their bravery. Hear, hear. Okay, fam, here we go.
Enbridge, when they applied for their Line 3 route, they specifically wanted to go through this new place. So it's not replacing the old line that's currently running through northern Minnesota. That corridor is, quote, too crowded, is what they said. And so they want to put it through a brand new place where it's untouched. Hundreds of miles of wetlands, over 800 wetlands and 200 bodies of water. It's a new line. It's triple the capacity, and it goes to this new place because their plan eventually is to put in more pipelines to create a corridor through the headwaters of the Mississippi River. It proposes to cross through the Mississippi twice and terminate at Lake Superior. Lake Superior is the Great Lakes. It's a fifth of the world's fresh water right there. It's not just about the spills, right? Because we know that pipelines leak and they spill. As Dakota Access has shown us, they didn't listen to the tribes then either, and that pipeline has already spilled multiple times. One of the many lawsuits, is actually focused on the lack of a spill analysis into Lake Superior, what that could actually do to the water system in the watershed. Tar sands doesn't float, it sinks in water. Enbridge is responsible for the giant spill into the Kalamazoo River. They are still cleaning that up. It's still sitting at the bottom of that river and in those places. We're sitting in a sacrifice zone. The thought is our people matter less, and so they can do this to us and continue this genocide they've been doing for hundreds of years on Native people. I mean, it really hurts. It hurts to be standing on this place that used to be forest. We're not going to make the change, the radical change that's needed, unless we're willing to do something about it. And what we've been doing so far hasn't been enough. Incremental change, policies, and all of that stuff, it's all important, but it hasn't been enough. So I hope people find their bravery.
So good. make sure you give a sub to Unicorn Riot if you haven't already. If you're watching this channel, you're probably subbed to Unicorn Riot. How about, first off, hold on. I always pronounce this Agathocles. And the first I heard him was when my homies from Gob did release stuff from them on Satan's Pimp and did splits with him. But I've also heard it Agathocles. Anyway, they fucking rule. They've been around forever. This is brand new. Also from Death by Digital. This is called Go Fucking Nihilist. Go. Death by Digital, fam. Agathocles.
And the reason I love doodling.
Agathocles, Agathocles. Whatever, they're fucking rad. And what I have queued up over here, though, is Swingin' Utters. This is from side 2. The song's called Sign It Away. And this is channel is Lena Danya. This is I painted myself underwater, oil painting time lapse. Let a second track play, fam. This is, this is Time Tells Time. Swinging at it.
Run
National insurance blackout. The business. Skateboarding for you. Video's called Rob Pace's Strider part. Small faces. Things are going to get better.
Being true to myself makes me see all the more things are gonna get better, gonna get better. Times fly, so don't you upset her, don't you upset her. And I know how I feel, and it's time for a change in how things are gonna get better, gonna get better. All right, hey. Yes, I know it things. They're gonna get better. There's common knowledge, there's always one exception, not quite part of the crowd. You try so hard just to laugh in the right places.
Washed up and left for dead. The Selector.
He has this feeling, he just knows it. They don't like him 'cause he's different. He knew all about the no-go areas. Still he went there all the same. He was washed up and left for dead. Nobody told him he was just not wanted. He gets so cold at the midnight. Oh, yeah. Don't want the money, he just wants to pay him. There's something driving him inside. His friends don't like him 'cause they think that he's so stupid. So he just goes out on his own. He saw the movie that night and it moved him. It was just like his life story. But he got jumped by some thugs on the way home. No one came to his rescue. He was washed up and left for dead. Nobody told him he was just not wanted. It gets so cold at the midnight. Oh, yeah. Night after night he's out, fighting the pavement. Hurt his hands clapping for the crew. He can't dance, but he can certainly cause trouble, yeah. Ah, washed up and left for dead. Nobody told him he was just not wanted. It's so cold at midnight. Oh, yeah. It's common knowledge, there's always one exception, not quite part of the crowd. He tries so hard just to laugh in the right places, but he knows it's just not funny. He has this feeling, he just knows it. They don't like him 'cause he's different. He knew all about the no-go areas. Still he went there all the same. Don't want the money, he just wants to pay him. There's something driving him inside.
Okay, fam. Before I start up the next video, which is from the channel World War II, which is sort of the sister channel, brother channel to Time Goes History. And the piece I'm going to play is called Communist Amazons, Women of the Red Army, World War II Special. Before I get to it, I just wanted to highlight that, you know, socialism and revolutionary leftism from its earliest inception was about trying to, you know, sort of end the status quo divisions, sexism and misogyny and racism. It wasn't always the best at it. I mean, when you read Lenin or Malatesta or Bakunin or Marx, when you read any of these people, you hear them say, like, you know, when man achieves something, you know, they use this type of terminology when they talk about human beings. It's always when man reaches this point, and, you know, if man wants to achieve the revolution, he must da 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 da. So you'll find those threads, and the reason I highlight that is because I don't want to act like leftists from 150 years ago were, you know, the keenest, most up, you know, like they would cut the mustard on bigotry and, anti-misogyny and patriarchy on Twitter in 2021. They wouldn't. But with all that said, like the tradition, you know, when the IWW first formed in 1905, women were treated equal. They were fellow workers. This was not the status quo prevailing wisdom of 1905. And very much in keeping with that, the Soviets and in World War II, they didn't, put women in the army. You'll hear a lot of right wingers when they talk shit on leftists. They'll say stuff like, "Why do you put your women on the front lines?" As though the men on the left have like power or control over women, and we put them places somehow when they come out into the street of their own volition and of their own free will and express their unique autonomous voice. We don't have control over that. And it's a weird, definitely a strange, well, not strange, but sorry, the video queued up and it distracted me. But it's an ongoing struggle is what it is, right? To varying degrees, of course, because while leftism has always had to struggle with, especially with sexism and misogyny, it's something I think leftism has been aware of and has at least made the effort to confront it throughout its history, as opposed to any type of right-wing project or fascist project or capitalist imperialist status quo project or any type of apologies for the like, being overtly against any type of actual recognizing the equality of people of all genders, okay? And so with all that kind of said, I'll mostly just let this play because I think it's really, really great. And it came out this month, but it's a little old. It came out on February 16, 2021. Let's go ahead and read the description. It's very short. Hundreds of thousands of Soviet women were deployed in the Red Army and Red Navy during World War II. They served in a multitude of functions, from traditional roles like nurses to roles previously associated with men. They were pilots, snipers, tank crews, and fought on the very front of the lines. This is from World War II, Communist Amazons, Women of the Red Army, World War II Special.
Their German enemies call them witches of the night, Amazons devoid of femininity, or Flintenweiber, a derogatory slur to describe the ferocious Soviet riflewoman. They fascinate both at home and abroad. They make a significant contribution to the Soviet war effort, behind and on the front lines. But at the same time, they have to deal with rampant sexism, misogyny, and the harsh challenges that anyone living a soldier's life has to face. They are the women of the Red Army. I'm Indy Nidell, and this is a World War II in real-time special episode. During this war, hundreds of thousands of women will serve in the Soviet Red Army and Red Navy. The inclusion of women in Soviet forces goes back to the communist principle that women are equal to men. We have covered that and the emergence of a new Soviet woman in the 1920s in an episode of On the Home Front. Soviet women experienced a wave of emancipation as they were granted voting rights, had their career opportunities expand, and gained some political influence. At the same time, though, traditional gender roles remained largely intact, adding the duties of a modern woman to the already hefty duties of that of the traditional woman, making the promise of gender equality largely just window dressing. Female participation in the armed forces at the start of the war is also mainly just that. The image of patriotic warrior women has been a staple in Soviet propaganda. It's regularly depicted in Soviet fiction, like in the 1934 movie Chapayev, in which Anka, a female machine gunner during the Russian Civil War, is featured. This is mostly a product of this imagined new femininity and the idea that, regardless of gender, any good Soviet citizen fights for their country. Many women hoping to enlist after the Germans invade in the summer of 1941, however, are rejected by the military authorities. Many sign up for combat specializations, but very few are accepted. There are duties to their families, moral issues with mixing genders, and women's physical limitations are listed as reasons. Initially, only 20,000 women can join the military ranks. For the rest, the focus still very much lies with traditional war roles. Like in many other countries, women are expected to serve as nurses, secretaries, drivers, telephone operators, and cooks. Between July and August 1941, just those 2 months, 220,000 women are recruited to receive nurse or other medical training. By the end of the war, they will make up 43% of surgeons, 46% of doctors, 57% of medical assistants, 100% of nurses, and 40% of all frontline medical personnel. The prevailing general attitude changes in the winter of 41-42 when it becomes clear that much more manpower is needed. The Red Army has suffered millions of casualties, and gender concerns are no longer really a priority. Some female units are already secretly founded in the fall of 1941, but public mass mobilization that includes hundreds of thousands of women doesn't start until the spring. In March 1942, the State Defense Committee and Defense Commissariat calls for the mobilization of 250,000 women into the military and 100,000 into the anti-air defense forces. From March 4th, female Komsomol conscripts will receive the same basic training their male counterparts receive, the full 110-hour Versevobuch military training. They learn to shoot, signal, drive, operate heavy military equipment. By the end of the war, 222,000 young women will have received their military training here. But the actual number of women on the front lines remains comparatively rather low. While some sources point to 800,000 to 1 million service women, others point out that while the mobilization targets indeed were roughly 800,000 for the entire war, no more than a little over 490,000 were actually recruited. Of these, roughly 250,000 serve in the air defense forces, about 40,000 more in the signals units, 28,000 as cooks, and 40,000 in the air forces serving a variety of roles. 162,000 women are expected to serve in 50 all-female infantry brigades. Only one is actually established. The first separate women's volunteer rifle brigade, according to Stalin, to satisfy women's desires to take up arms to defend their socialist motherland.
It was like my wife.
Yeah, we'll skip in 1 second. There we go, fam.
But across the board, many Soviet women move into the ranks as snipers, machine gunners, anti-aircraft personnel, in tank crews, also as partisan fighters, and even as pilots. Now, I've already talked about female Soviet pilots in a video I did together with the band Sabaton about their song Night Witches on the Sabaton History channel. You can find that video in the description. Anyway, Night Witches was the Germans' nickname for one of 3 female Red Army Air Force regiments, specifically the 588th Night Bomber Air Regiment, flying outdated PO-2 biplanes. The other 2 are the 587th Bomber Air Regiment, flying mainly in new PE-2 dive bombers, and the 586th Fighter Air Regiment, flying mainly Yak-1 fighter planes. All 3 regiments are founded by the famous Soviet aviatrix and covert NKVD agent Marina Raskova. The 586 enters combat for the first time in April 1942. It will be the home of the only 2 female flying aces the war will see, Yekaterina Budanova and commanding officer Lydia Litviak. Just like the pilots, women serving as snipers also quickly make headlines. Stalin calls them the glorious executioners of the German occupiers on May 1st, 1942. The sniper movement started on the Leningrad front half a year earlier. Initial training happened on the front lines under the auspices of people like the famous Natalia Kovshova. Over the course of the war, 2,500 female snipers will serve in the Red Army. In the spring of 1942, a central school for sniper instructors is founded, training both male and female teachers and snipers. On May 21st, 1943, the Central Women's Sniper School is established. They receive training in stalking, range finding, camouflage, and of course, shooting. They soon compete with their colleagues over who has the highest kill tally. The markswomen become a propaganda symbol of patriotism and superb military skill. Famous snipers like Rosa Shanina, Nina Lobkovskaya, and Alia Moldagulova become true celebrities. 26-year-old Lieutenant Lyudmila Pavlichenko even represents the USSR on a visit to the White House in Washington in 1942, making big headlines around the world. The American press is largely unfamiliar with snipers at this point, let alone female snipers, asking Pavlichenko questions like, do girls wear lipstick at the front? And what color do they prefer? And what underwear does Lady Pavlichenko prefer? And what color does she like? But she is as much of a killer as any other sniper in the Red Army. By August 1942, she has racked up a whopping 309 kills, making her the most successful female sniper in history. She joined the front line a year before that, suffered some minor injuries, and fought in the long battle of Sevastopol, often battling with German snipers and killing 36 of them. The use of snipers only increases as the war drags on, most famously in the Battle of Stalingrad. This eventually leads to the establishment of 30-strong sniper platoons, some of which are all female. But while female snipers make a significant contribution to the Soviet war effort, and while they are popular heroines at home and abroad, they remain soldiers. They get scared, they get scarred, and they die just like any other soldier. Roughly 80% of those women enlisted as snipers in the Red Army will not survive the war. But being women, they also have to deal with things that their male counterparts do not. Female uniforms don't arrive until well into 1942. Till then, they have to wear ill-fitting male uniforms and male undergarments. Whenever possible, the women on the front try to collect silk German parachutes to make their own. Some embrace a more masculine identity. Klara Tikhonovich, serving as an AA gun operator, remembers how they tried to adapt, becoming like men at the beginning. Oh yes, we had our hair cut very short, changed our movement when walking, but later on, no more. No. We wanted to wear makeup. We saved our sugar and used it for our hair. We were happy when we found a cauldron of water for washing our hair. We had our specifics, we girls. Just like Klara, many also feared that military service would compromise their femininity or their ability to find a mate. Many had their hair cut during basic training, which for most long-haired braided Soviet girls was a great tragedy. Life on the front lines does not fit the idea of a proper woman. Asya Lovrova, serving in a political detachment, writes to her boyfriend that, "We had a rest at one base where military girls lived. They grabbed paper and rolled cigarettes, as if they were in a contest. I was shocked by this picture. How vulgar they were. They want to be like men in any case. It is so disgusting." It's even worse for those who are injured. They can't, in many cases, return to their pre-war life, as in the eyes of many, their femininity has visually been scarred for life. As we've seen, it is harder for them to be assigned to their preferred military specialization. They are only barely accepted as officers. Their male officers are less likely to send them into combat, assuming that male soldiers are more competent in battle, even though the women perform better in both pilot and sniper training. And while many female soldiers do enjoy the opportunity to meet young men of the opposite sex on the front lines, many also have to deal with sexual harassment and even rape and forced abortion. But sexual harassment also comes from within their own ranks. Their male officers would line up new recruits to pick the prettiest to work at the staff headquarters. One radio operator, Zoya Gorokhova, recalls, "And the men around us were also horrible. And every one of them, he wanted something warm. He needed a woman. But there were only a few of us. We struggled to fight our way out. It was very hard for us to exist in that zone." Their hard-fought equality in the Red Army melts away quickly after the guns go silent and the war is over. Pravda, the official Communist Party newspaper, writes about women in March 1945 that they very energetically prove themselves as pilots, snipers, submachine gunners, but they don't forget about their primary duty to nation and state, that of motherhood. Still, the image of female war heroes remains strong. Despite the inflated propaganda image, women did contribute a lot to the Soviet war effort.
That's kind of, I just wanted to stop real quick and highlight, that's kind of what I was talking about in the intro, is that, I mean, clearly recognizing their ability to do as well as, if not even outshine, male counterparts. Even Pravda, supportive of the equality, doesn't recognize that saying their primary function is to make babies is a really gross and sexist, disgusting thing to say. So, but that's not to say you can't, I don't think it's fair to then point to, you know, the Bolsheviks or the Red Army or the, you know, the Soviets and say, see, they were deeply sexist. That's a deeply sexist thing to have said. But leftism and socialism and revolutionary leftism, anarchism, communism, it is at its root about trying to find the best way to emancipate the most marginalized and oppressed people in society. Okay? But that doesn't mean that each of us as individuals aren't clouded by our own preconceptions and unaddressed, internalized bigotries and irrationalities. And, but when you compare this to what's going on with anything that's pro-capitalist or even, you know, just right-wing defenses of that, especially contemporaneously or even in modern times, what was going on within the Red Army far surpasses anything that was going on in the West. And still to this day, I think in many ways is ahead of the curve with what's going on in the West. But anyway, there's just a couple, another 30 seconds or so of this, and I've got some music queued up, but all right, here we go.
They fought dutifully, effectively, and heroically. Many gave their lives for their country, fighting to the best of their abilities and showing that, yes, since a bullet is still a bullet no matter who pulls the trigger, they were also as capable of defending their nation as the men were. If you want to check out that On the Homefront episode I mentioned, you can do so right here any second now. And join the Time Ghost Army at patreon.com or timeghost.tv so we can make ever more specials like this and ever more content in general. All right? See you next time.
Got Spit Boy queued up. In Tradition is the song. Since I screwed him hard earlier on the speed control, I'm going to play a little more Grimple. Oh shit. One more. word salad from Albuquerque. So what's going on with the video now is this is the Newsmax live stream. So they play ads, of course. And they even do, this is, who knows what this is. But this is them live right now. We'll listen to a little more word salad. And then we'll listen to Newsmax spew word salad. And like I said, I'm just going to see what they're talking about and do my best to sort of deconstruct it, right? I hate that we're showing whatever they're advertising for, because fuck anybody that wants to advertise on Newsmax, right? Since there's still ads jumping, I got another word salad 7-inch. Thought I didn't. This is a split with Scared of Chaka, both Albuquerque bands. Okay, so they've come in on
the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. all resonated with Americans. Both President Reagan and his press secretary, James Brady, would survive the assassin's bullet and continue on their journey to change America. During the presidential campaign, Reagan promised to select the first woman to the Supreme Court. He fulfilled his campaign commitment by selecting Sandra Day O'Connor. Judge O'Connor would remain on the court for over 30 years until she retired during the Bush presidency with distinction. Ronald Reagan was committed to bringing down the Soviet Union and communism, not through war, but by an explosion of ideas and choices.
As I speak to you tonight, the fate
An explosion of ideas
hangs in the balance. For 1,000 years, Christmas has been celebrated in Poland, a land of deep religious faith. But this Christmas brings little joy to the courageous Polish people. They have been betrayed by their own government. The men who rule them and their totalitarian allies fear the very freedom that the Polish people cherish. They have answered the stirrings of liberty with brute force, killings, mass arrests, and the setting up of concentration camps. Lech Walesa and other Solidarity leaders are imprisoned, their fate unknown. Factories, mines, universities, and homes have been assaulted. The Polish government has trampled underfoot solemn commitments to the UN Charter and the Helsinki Accords. It has even broken the Gdansk Agreement of August 1980. But if the forces of tyranny in Poland and those who incite them from without do not relent, they should prepare themselves for serious consequences. Already, throughout the free world, citizens have publicly demonstrated their support for the Polish people. Our government and those of our allies have expressed moral revulsion at the police state tactics of Poland's oppressors. The church has also spoken out in spite of threats and intimidation.
Fuck the Catholic Church.
Reagan looked to the solidarity movements to help liberate Poland and the Eastern Bloc. His partner in this enterprise was to be Pope John Paul II, the first Polish pope. Pope John Paul II came to power in 1979 and saw the liberation of his homeland as a divine cause. In Ronald Reagan, the Pope had a spiritual and ideological ally. Theirs was a close friendship and a formidable partnership.
They hated communism and leftism, and that's it. That's all they had in common. The Catholic Church totally backed Mussolini and backed fucking Hitler.
Their rallying cry was, "For our freedom and yours." Well, that motto still rings true in our time. There is a spirit of solidarity abroad in the world tonight that no physical force can crush.
So is this just some fucking full-on pro-Reagan documentary propaganda that they're running? Because, I mean, all I see here on just a cold drop on what they got happening and what they're live streaming here is, you know, an idealization or you know, a sort of false, it's like rewriting the history of who Reagan was, that him and the Pope had some type of spiritual connection. No, they didn't. It was a traditionally anti-leftist, anti-communist, anti-revolutionary, socialist position. This was in keeping with Gladio and COINTELPRO that predated and set the stage for the Reagan administration. And I'm not an expert on the relationship between Poland and the USSR at the time. I was very young. I was a child during this time and not paying attention to it at all. But what you see is Newsmax provides no context for that. Just look at this, you know, they're deifying him is the word I was looking for earlier. You know, oh, this great anti-communist warrior who had plans and ideas and new strategies of what? And that anyone from the Reagan administration or a Western pro-capitalist fucking perspective has any room to speak about atrocities and police states and imprisoning people. You know, and it's, so apparently that's what's going on here, is this is just a full-on, we're going to worship at the altar of Reagan and show why he was so great because he was such an anti-communist, you know, crusader for good and religion and God and whatever, racist piece of shit that he was. This is what Newsmax is showing their viewers. How many people are watching this? 2,000 people are watching this right now. 1,982 people are watching this right now, or 1,994. What about all the people that starved and died under the Reagan administration? What about the Iran-Contra affair? What about all the fucking oppression and brutalization of poor and working class struggling people from the global south under the Reagan administration? And what the fuck does Reagan care about Poland? Oh, he can use it to foment U.S. imperialist military action all over the globe, and conveniently fearmonger and demonize the emancipation of poor and working class people, which is what revolutionary leftism does. So, I mean, it's not that it's any secret, but Newsmax is just a propaganda outlet. This provides you no context for what the real struggles were at the time. Reagan, I mean, they stated that his goal was to defeat communism. And that's why we have to understand, you know, when all these fucking right-wingers today talk about, well, when has it ever worked? You know, when has socialism ever worked, or communism? It's going to work once capitalism and the people who fucking maintain the imperialist status quo version of it, like this piece of shit Reagan did, when they're eliminated, then the emancipation and the freedom and equality of all humanity will be equalized and made manifest. But the reason the various socialist projects, quote unquote, haven't worked, which many of them have. They have put halts and emancipated some people from some of the oppression of capitalism along the way. And with each one of these flurries of revolutionary fucking success, whether it's lasting or not, enables the next one and makes us better and more knowledgeable and adept revolutionaries, right? But when they point to the right wing, when they point to and say, this is, you know, it didn't work, it collapsed, you know, it's because all the weight and power and mechanisms of the West and the capitalist imperialist status quo in the West were brought to bear on that revolutionary leftist project of the Soviets. They had their faults. There's many, many things that went on under the Soviet regime that were astoundingly disgusting, okay? But they are also, you can't decouple that from the fact that they were, without question, under constant and immense threat from the entire weight and power of the West, of the capitalist imperialist West, right? And I guess this is what Newsmax does on a Sunday afternoon, is just reminds people of the garbage, lies, and propaganda they pushed in the 80s. The things that facilitated Reagan. Reagan was brought to power by demonizing and scapegoating black people and dog whistling. And, he kicked off his campaign in his 1980 campaign in the city in Mississippi. I forget the name, but where, you know, if you see the movie Mississippi Burning, where civil rights activists, black civil rights activists, three civil rights activists, one of them was black, two of them were white, I believe, were murdered by the Klan, assisted by the local law enforcement. And that was the only thing in history that brought prominence to this community in Mississippi. And that's where Reagan kicked off his campaign. Sort of like when Trump kicked off his campaign by calling Mexicans rapists and criminals, which was, you know, not a dog whistle, it was a blaring tuba horn to the racists in America. Reagan's version of that was to kick off his campaign in that community in Mississippi. So they don't tell you that history, right? They just want to, you know, and also coming to, he facilitated by that type of bullhorn to the racist community, as well as perpetuating and full-on deep-throated announcing anti-communist rhetoric that had been nurtured and built over time and grown over time, dating back essentially from the 40s and 50s and under the John Birch Society, tying the civil rights movement dishonestly to some type of outside influence from Marxists like Mao or the Soviets that are supposedly causing these people in the civil rights era like Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or even the Panthers to, you know, do what they did, as opposed to it being, again, of their own volition in the search for emancipation from the bonds of Western imperialist capitalism, and to realize their own actual real-time equality. That's how Reagan came to power, though, was those bullhorns, the letting the people on the far right in America know that, hey, I'm here in Mississippi letting you know how much I dig all that hardcore racist shit that happened there, and the racist murder that happened there and stuff. And check it out, all the stuff that like the John Birch Society and the Klan and everything has been telling you about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X for decades. Yeah, I'm with that too. So we're just going to hate on the Soviets. And, you know, that was Reagan. I didn't hear Newsmax letting you know, or at least give you that perspective on it, from which you could draw your own conclusions about what Reagan's legacy and contribution to the country was, right? No. He's this glorious guy who had a religious connection to the Pope and freed the world from the evils of, you know, so-called evils of communism. It's fucking ridiculous. And what I got queued up over here, fam, is the pretty things. And this big boss man. Because fuck him.
All you hands on
The Farmer.
Hot till the sun goes down. It's up every morning, right on by. A white and green sea has just become alive. The hit don't win, and no farm close. It's always using a raking hoe, but it seeds starting to grow like a big spark through the sky. Used to live in an apartment in a big old city, with flipping piece of windows built right in it. But he decided to move to a little tiny town. We wanna be a farmer all year round. And on a country road where you can't see a thing, he's got 5 acres filled with little green beans. He said he's working so hard all night and day. Mr. Farmer, let me watch your crops. Mr. Farmer, let me water your crops. Mr. Farmer, let me harvest your crops. I wanna have a green thumb. I said, farmer, 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 I wanna be just like you. See the farmer walking downtown always drives a crowd when he's around. He's always wearing a CD clothes that shows them all wherever he goes. You can spot him anywhere. Got a bright pink thumb, but he don't care. He said it looks like something from a berry factory. Mr. Farmer, let me watch your crops. Mr. Farmer, let me water your crops. Mr. Farmer, let me harvest your crops. Mr. Farmer, let me save your crops. I said, farmer, 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 farmer.
See the little girl who's new in town. Well, you better watch out now, or she'll put you down. 'Cause she's an evil chick. Say she's the witch. She got a long black hair in a big black car. I know what you're thinking, but you won't get far. She's gonna make you ill, 'cause she's the witch. Well, she wanders around late at night, wants to the people sleeping tight. If you hear her knocking on your door, you better say it on me. Wow, wow, baby, wow. Now you know the score, 'cause I said she's great. But you better be careful before it's too late. She's gonna make you ill, 'cause she's the late at night, when most other people live on time. If you hear her knocking
Okay, so what I'm queuing up now is clearly, whoops, what just happened? There we go. It's from Black Power Media. I want to close this. Hold on. And they put this up today, and we're not going to watch the whole thing. It's actually a fantastic 2-hour video. Discussion with Dhoruba bin Wahad discusses Judas and the Black Messiah. And it really discusses so much more than just Judas and the Black Messiah. It really gets into some crucially important history in relation to the Panther Party and so much more. I really recommend you go check this video out. It's over at Black Power Media. But there was a portion of it that really stood out to me that I thought I would like to share with you because it's in relation to, I think there's a lot of new leftists and liberals out there that are having trouble differentiating between sort of black nationalism or maybe even black capitalism and the differences between what the Panthers were doing, and can maybe, especially with some of people that kind of look like me, tend to get into the overly critical camp of those types of ideologies. Like I said, like black nationalism, which I think is really inappropriate. Let's just come out straight. If you're a white person, watch how you're fucking critical or criticizing black nationalism or black capitalism. Okay? These are colonized people, not colonizers, like white nationalists. The two are not the same in any way whatsoever. And the reason I wanted to cue this up, and I'm not sure if I've got it right, I might have to tweak around a little bit with exactly, finding the right spot. Actually, I think this is it. This is it. But the reason I want to highlight this is because I think the discussion that this veteran Panther and Dr. Jared Ball have really highlights the nuances and the perplexities and the individual diversity of those that comprise the revolutionary community of the Panthers and black nationalists at the time, and shows how these things don't exist as monoliths, right? And people within this community had varying ideas and opinions of these different types of manifestations. Everything, not just black nationalism or black capitalism, but also revolutionary communist emancipation, like the project that the Panthers were on. And so anyway, with all that said, I just thought that this discussion did such a good job of, there was much I learned about from this brief portion of it, and the whole thing in general, but from this about it showed me so much about how this can be framed in a way that's respectful, but not, but clear-eyed, I think, in a lot of ways. You may not agree with everything that's expressed herein, and that's okay, but this, if you look like me, like I said, if you're white, I'm part Latinx, but I present white, and I have a lot of white privilege, and there was just much that showed me that the power in, shutting up and listening, which I think is exactly what I'm going to do right now. So check it out, fam. Again, this is from Black Power Media. The video is Dhoruba bin Wahad discusses Judas and the Black Messiah. And so Jared Ball is reading questions from a BuzzFeed piece, just kind of going through their questions and then letting Dhoruba bin Wahad give his kind of thoughts and perspective on that framing of the question. And so here we go.
Ability to move his people
let's back up just a little bit.
That don't
with shields, you see. So I don't take what Bobby Rush has to say seriously. He was always a punk. He was scared straight ever since Fred was murdered. He had that frightened deer look in his face.
So I'll leave that as context. You got to go watch this whole thing. But here's the question. And here we go.
I wanted you to address, because I think you somewhat mentioned it in one of your part of your opening comments, but one of the more powerful moments, according to BuzzFeed, was when Deborah Johnson tells Fred he's a poet. And if I remember correctly, that's specifically after she sort of politely chastises him for demeaning a brother in a dashiki. And at the beginning of the film, which is meant to quickly summarize what is popularly, I think, overly simplified as the beef between the Black Panther Party and either the US organization or cultural nationalism in general. So she's pointing out he's a poet and has the ability to move his people in ways that don't demean them should he choose. And again, whatever my biases may be, I have never appreciated the way that popular culture depicts that those differences. And I didn't like the way this film did that. But what do you think about that particular depiction of this clash, as it's often described, between the Panthers and us, or Panthers and cultural nationalism, or how it might have been depicted in this film, if you or others would agree with my quick summary of the scene?
I think it's bullshit. Let me say this. Like I said, every region had its own development. We look at how Black folks came to California. How did they get there during World War II? They came to work the Navy yards. They came to help build the Pacific Fleet in the fight against Japan. That's how Oakland came to be a predominantly Black enclave. That's how all of the Bay Area got its Black population. And they mainly came from places like Louisiana, Texas, and the South. And the crackers that became the police came from those places too. Okay? So there was a particular type of development there. Southern California and California never really had a serious cultural, nationalist, and Pan-African centered movements. They were not that type of center like Philadelphia or New York or Chicago or DC on the East Coast, okay? And so a lot of folks in California at that time had a certain type of ambivalence, especially when Huey when Huey first encountered them over the security for Betty Shabazz. That's a classic encounter where the cultural nationalists showed up with empty guns. You see, they were fronting. And that became the idea of Panthers from the West, that Black nationalists, those who had Afrocentric views, were somehow fronting. They weren't street. They weren't real. Of course, he ain't ran up on niggas like us from Harlem yet. Okay, but having said that, even when I joined the Black Panther Party, or Sekou Odinga joined the Black Panther Party, or Lumumba Shakur, look at the names of the East Coast Black Panthers. They were all African names. And I know personally in the party, when I first went out to the West Coast, that they made certain assumptions because we had African names, until I got their Black asses back to Harlem, and then they could, they put that shit back in perspective. You see what I'm saying? But I'm just saying that, they didn't understand what was taking place. Having said that, then it is the reality of the counterintelligence program and how it used organizations like us and Ron Karanga to neutralize the popularity of the Black Panther Party in California, which led, of course, to the murder of John and Bunchy in LA, and so this and other murders, you see. And on the East Coast, this was not the same thing. And so Black nationalists on the East Coast tended to be followers of Malcolm X. And even the cultural nationalists, what we call the dashiki wearing nationalists. They understood the value of black armed self-defense and black cultural identity. Black cultural identity was not used as a placebo for organization of black people. It was used to change our core material values in a capitalist society. It was more oriented towards our history as African people being more social, being more communal. And that's how it played itself out on the East Coast. If you notice that Leroy Jones, Amiri Baraka, was a close associate of Ram Karanga and started Al Qaeda on the East Coast. But what was the difference? Al Qaeda and Amiri Baraka in Newark organized a movement that resulted in the first black mayor of Newark. Okay, so this was some activist-based cultural nationalism. This wasn't no dashiki posturing. So this so-called phony dichotomy that Fred was a poet and he was demeaning somebody in the dashiki is totally bogus. You know, revolutionary nationalism, revolutionary Pan-Africanism, you can wear whatever you want. You know, it's about your relationship to the enemy. And we've always known that. Some of the best poets on the East Coast, we know, from all the way from the last poets to the brothers out of Brooklyn with Sonny Carson and his son. They were all Afrocentric, had African names. So we didn't make that type of distinction as a matter of policy. So that's bogus. But it's true that the counterintelligence program exploited that perception and used that against the Black Panther Party. For instance, many cultural nationalists, especially the academics, some of them who are prominent today, were talking about that the Black Panther Party had white folks in it and that we had alliances with white people and that we were like that and all of this stuff, and we weren't black enough. And so this continues to this day.
You know, there's a prominent film historian and bookstore curator in D.C. who publicly berated Huey Newton and the Panthers. As he said one day in his bookstore, all Huey wanted to do was cocaine and fuck white women.
Fucking shitty thing to say.
Anyway, so I mean, this is
who was this dude that wrote that? What was his name?
It wasn't written. It was a conversation that I was present for, and several of his film students and I guess acolytes in his bookstore.
Well, you know, I must say, there's a lot of guys like that because they were students at that time. All of these professors that used to say that now to young folks, they were students at that time. They wasn't doing jack shit on the campus, but marching around with dashikis and afros and having sisters walk 2 steps behind them, okay? They were the ones that you see today that many of them are punk ass heads of Afro studies departments. Yeah, they punks, the intellectual masturbators. They have all of this to say about radicalism. But what was their role in the 60s? What did they actually do when the guns was drawn, when the crackers were stomping us out, when we was talking about community control of police? What was they doing? What were they doing? They were matriculating through college. They were learning about their black self. And because we were able to lead white people to take a more radical stand against empire and against white supremacy, we were somehow only interested in sniffing blow and boning pointed heads. That's all we wanted to do. So what about the rappers today? What's their main interest? What's Jay-Z's main interest? He came up slinging yay yo.
Well, my question at the time, and still is, that's not what the counterintelligence programs thought was a threat and was targeting. If that's all the Panthers were doing, then I can't imagine.
We would have been superfluous.
I mean, that was my point. So I just found that to be disingenuous, but it's just something that.
But I just want people to understand that the majority of intellectuals who approach my age, who were around at that time, don't believe me, they wasn't on the front lines and on the streets. They were getting their degrees, they were matriculating through college, and that's cool, because I don't have no problem with that, as long as you produce revolutionaries. That's what teachers are supposed to do. Okay, but this is what they were doing at that time, and the Black Panther Party was on the front line. And if you don't believe me, there's a 1970 survey, NBC or CBS survey, national poll that was taken amongst Black people in 1970, and they were asked what Black leader or what organization do they admire the most, and they said the SCLC, the Black Panther Party, and the NAACP. Now, how did the Black Panther Party become number two between two pacifist, nonviolent organizations whose politics is radically different? It's because Black folks understood one thing and one thing that had to stand out, that we will defend the Black community against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that we stand for our people with our lives. And they understood that. You can't say that about these pencil-pushing intellectuals that were matriculating through school in their dashikis and afros and wasn't doing jack shit but writing their thesis. So I don't want to hear that. That's why I asked who this knucklehead was, because now I'm 76. I can slap people my age and people won't say
I don't want to cause any of that, but it was Haile Garima and Sankofa Books. I mean, you know, so I mean, I was sitting right. And it was in the context of, and in fact, it was actually interesting because it was in the context, he was responding to a question I was asking him. This is 20 years ago, to be fair. But I was asking him a question about Fred Hampton and the Panthers. And I was asking specifically, would the Panthers fit within his view of maroonage? Maroonage, and you know, because he was working on that at the time, and he said no, because the Panthers didn't create any new land or economies, they didn't run away anywhere, and then he went into this whole thing, which concluded with what I just said. He said, and that's a direct quote. So you know. I mean, you know, I don't know. We didn't. He didn't. You know, he's never felt me worthy of a real conversation about that, and that's, you know, understandable too. But that was all. You know, that was as far as the conversation went. But I was just pointing out that these things still happen.
See, he didn't think you were worthy of a real conversation. You see how I could discern character from afar, man. You see how I could discern character from afar. Absolutely. Anyway, don't get it twisted. That sentiment is still rife amongst a lot of Black academicians who I said played this type of role in the 60s. And they kind of shy to do it now because of movies that come out about the Black Panthers, because young, bright-eyed people come forward, you know, after reading the new Jim Crow and trying to get in touch with their radical history. But none of the students come and say to them, so before they ask this question, what was you doing in 1969, Professor? Oh, so I want to ask you about the Black Panther Party. If you ask that other question first, you get a whole different answer.
Well, let me you know, we could come back to any of that you like, but
so let's get on to the next highlight.
Because one of the highlights here was when, you know, of what, because again, we're going through this list of,
so if you want to see the rest of that, then you'll have to go over and sub Black Power Media. And actually, I think I should read this description because it gives you a quick understanding of who we were just listening to, right? And my bad for not having read this before we started. But Dhoruba bin Wahad is a former member of the Black Panther Party, the Panther 21, and the Black Liberation Army. His role as an organizer on the Black Panther Party Central Committee put him in contact with and/or made him aware of much of what was occurring within and around the party, and was involved in his own political imprisonment of more than 19 years. And he really gets into a lot of that history and that story, and it is just such an incredible discussion. And listen, what's going on right now with Black Power Media, now for those who don't know, it was originally the channel, it was Jared Ball's personal channel, I Mix What I Like. And that's how I started watching it. And he's recently teamed up with all these different voices, and like Rosa Clement and just a number of, what is it? I can't remember the other, Revolutionary Radicals. Gosh darn it, I can't remember. But there's like a dozen or so people that are now contributing, and he's changed the name of the channel to Black Power Media. And since they made this new rollout, they're just cranking out incredible conversations like this. One of the more recent ones I watched, let's go over to the channel and I'd like to show you. One of the recent discussions that I watched that was so amazing. This episode right here. Renegade Culture podcast. That's the but this conversation, it's a two-part video. In the first half, they talked to Chairman Fred Hampton Jr., and in the second half, they talked to Mutulu Shakur at the ongoing legacy of resistance. Holy shit. That is such a good, the whole thing is really good, but that second half of this, wow. If you want to some firsthand account of political prisoners and what they're going through, as well as some drama in relation to Tupac Shakur. I don't want to make light of it. It is such a powerful discussion about Mutulu Shakur and his long history of political imprisonment. But again, those are just two examples. This video and then what we just watched of what's going on over there with Black Power Media. And I just really highly suggest you give them a sub, and because their goal is to turn it into a 24-hour project. So 24 hours a day, they would be streaming content. They're not quite there, but they're fucking close, fam. So anyway, yeah, that is Black Power Media and what was going on. I want to put up some art for us to look at. I already played that. I think we were on the skateboarding. I'm getting ready to wrap it up, but I thought, we'll go ahead and let this last video play out. I wanted to play a little bit of music before we go. So here we go. Back to here. What I got queued up, fam. Just want to say we experienced a huge loss recently of Gene Taylor, who played piano for the Blasters. So I've got some Blasters queued up from this album here. This is it's called Hardline. I played this song before on stream. This is called Help You Dream. Rest in power, Gene Taylor.
Well, is this seat taken? Would you mind some company? You've been alone all evening. Would you like to talk with me? Do I come here often? You might say that I do. Is someone waiting? I was just gonna ask you, 'cause you're the prettiest woman I think I've ever seen. And tonight, if you let me, I'd like to help you dream. Well, you got the nicest brown eyes and a little girl's smile. You should have been in the movies. You say you haven't heard that in a while. You sound just like Dolly singing on the radio. Do you know someplace quiet where both of us could go? 'Cause you're the prettiest woman I think I've ever seen. And tonight, if you let me, I'd like to help you dream. 'Cause I think I know what it looks like when you get back Well, how about another drink? What's that? You got to go home. You say it's been nice talking. Then why are you leaving me alone? 'Cause you're the prettiest woman I think I've ever seen. Tonight, if you let me, I'd like to help you dream. Well, do I come here often? You might say that I do.
Rest in power, Gene Taylor. About to get out, fam. Fun fact, if you go and order stuff from Stand Up and Fight Back at standupandfightback.bigcartel.com and you put in the promo code Malatesta, you'll get a discount, and Comrade will know that it was Punks for Progress that got you there. But hey, this has just been one of them there, Punks for Progress, What the Fuck reports. Just wanted to say much thanks, love, and appreciation to everyone on the P4P project. And of course, much thanks and appreciation to you for watching. Most especially, most thanks, love, and appreciation to literally anyone and everyone who does what they can, when they can, to get up and out, to make an effort to make life easier for other people. Because it makes a difference and it fucking matters. Anyway, I'm Reverend Aaron. This is What the Fuck Report. Much love to you, fam. We'll see you next time on Punks for Progress.
Hi, neighbor. Welcome again to this neighborhood. I'd like to show you something. You know what this is? Maybe if I press this button. This is a cassette player with a little cassette in here, and there's nothing written on it, so we'll just have to play it to see what it is. Do you ever imagine things? Are they scary things? Are they scary things? Do you ever imagine things? Things you'd like to have? Did you ever see a cat's eyes in the dark and wonder what they were? Did you ever pretend about things like that before? Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind? You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind. It's good to be curious about many things. You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think and they'll grow. Imagine every person that you see is somewhat different from every other person in the world. Some can do some things, some can do others. Did you ever think of the many things you've learned to do? Many things. Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind? You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind. It's good to be curious about many things. You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think and they'll grow. Did you feel like going like that? Let's give the fish some food. Mr. McFeely, I didn't order any whistle. That's what they call a slide whistle. Did you feel like going like that? There are so many things to learn about in this world, and so many people who can help us learn. Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind? You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind. It's good to be curious about many things. You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think. You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think, and they'll grow.
All right, fam. We will see you next time on Punks for Progress.